All right, welcome back to our council meeting of February 5th, 2019. I see that all members are present, which means we have a quorum. We've just finished an in-camera session, and I do have a motion before me, which is moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 10 a.m. Questions? Calling the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Does carry. Okay, I've signed the sheet. So I can tell you that as mayor, I am confirming that only the closed session items identified were discussed in closed session. Now we're moving on to item 5, which is matters arising from closed session. We did have an addition to our citizen appointment bylaw, which is bylaw number 15-2019, to add the following citizens to the following committees. Dark Skies Committee, Roger Gagnon. Glenelg Hall Committee, Boyd Colwell and Janice McKechnie. West Grey Economic Development Committee, Jamie Doherty. Thank you. We're moving right along, and we are now on item 6, which is the comment period. So if there's any member of the audience that would like to provide a comment based on our current agenda before us, please raise your hand. You have 2 minutes at the podium where you can provide your comment. For the entire section of or section or item of this agenda, it's a total of 10 minutes. So are there any members of the audience that wish to provide comment to members of council? All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. So we are on item 7, which is public meeting. There are no public meetings. And now item 8, part 1, which is the consent agenda. I do have a motion. Okay, thank you. The consent motion moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Be it resolved that items A1 to B1 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as printed, and further that authorization be given to the action to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained herein. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Yes, please. Okay. I'll just pass those on. All right, our clerk has just gone out to the outer office. He's inviting our Director of Finance and Treasurer to come in a little early because we're moving right along here. So now that we've done the consent items, we are now on part 2 of the agenda, which is regular agenda number 9, communications from mayor and members of council. I'll start and then I'll look around the horseshoe for additions from members of council. So myself, the Deputy Mayor, Councillors Townsend, Hutchinson and Hergert attended the Roma conference. I had the pleasure of leading a delegation where we met the Parliamentary Assistant to the Ministry of Transportation, Kinga Surma. We had a delegation to consider a maintenance grant. So we had a proposal where rather than always receiving grant money to fix infrastructure, that there should be a second stream, continue with that funding opportunity, but also have the Ministry of Transportation consider a maintenance grant formula whereby we could do preventative maintenance and maybe the overall funding for replacement would be lowered. So that was the intent. Well received by MTO. We're still dialoguing with them, getting more information. So I would say there is a great interest from the ministry on that. Also at the conference, we were delighted to be highlighted as a municipality because the president of AMO which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, acknowledged that West Grey was doing something really, really great, and we're leveraging our resources to participate in 6 various initiatives through AMO to provide cost savings and efficiency. So the President highlighted that in his opening comments at the conference. So just to note, the 6 programs that we're involved in here at West Grey through the Local Authority Services Program, LAS for short, is the electricity pricing, natural gas rates, LED lighting replacements, road assessment, energy planning, and long-term investments. So well done to staff and members of council for that. I'd like to thank Councillor Shea for representing me and council at the Durham Fitness Centre 20th anniversary celebration, and well done to the Durham Fitness Centre as well. So that concludes my comments. I'll now start to the right of me and ask if there's any updates from members of council. All right, okay, Councillor Hamilton.
It's been a very busy time. I think I'll just highlight something that's coming up in the future. It's from Grey County. It's called Rural Opportunities Matchmaking, Land Sharing, Networking, and Workshop. You can find this on Facebook and on their website. Basically, it's an opportunity for landowners who have land that they would like to aren't using for farming, and perhaps they'd like other people to come and farm on their land. So it's landowners and land seekers. It's an opportunity for them to come together and connect. And hopefully we have some more opportunities there for farming here locally. I also attended the Library Board Boot Camp in Toronto, and perhaps I'll bring back a report later about that. It was a wonderful day. I went down with Malcolm Bedeau, Chair of the Library Board, and also Lindsay Glacier attended as well from that board. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. All right, I'm looking to my left here, Councillor Shea.
So while many of you were at the conference, Councillors Hamilton and Townsend and I attended a meeting with Bill Walker and Steve Clark up in Owen Sound, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. It was a roundtable discussion in which the minister was seeking input for future policy directions, and the questions that came up over and over again were around affordable housing. That wasn't necessarily the agenda, but affordable housing came up over and over again, including initiatives like tiny houses. And the minister said that didn't say that there'd be any new money. He said they were overspending as it is, but he was looking to the municipalities to exercise creative solutions. So I don't know how we do that, but apparently the ball is in our court.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Yes, it was my first Roma conference, and I can't sort of emphasize enough just how important it is that you attend those kind of things, what you learn, your networking. It was good to meet with the province and see them open to our delegation more than anything else. Obviously, no commitment in the first meeting, but at least you clarify your statement. They're asking for more. Had they not asked for more, I might have been somewhat disappointed. The other thing was on the Fitness Center 20th anniversary. I was absolutely amazed at how many people showed up at that. It was very, very well attended, and I was glad to see that happen as well. Again, the housing discussion
Yes.
with Minister Clark and with our MPP was excellent. And the thing that really impressed me most there was the fact that they acknowledged they're going to have to open up and review the provincial policy statement too. So while they're asking the municipalities to do it, the framework that we work under in many cases is the provincial policy statement. So if they just left that alone, it would become very, very difficult, almost impossible. But they have acknowledged they're going to do that. A couple of things coming up with council. We're still going through our budget. There's a meeting on the 7th, another one on the 22nd of February. Encourage people to come out if you're interested and you want to learn exactly how the budget process works. And also there will be a chili cook-off at the Legion on the 23rd. And I think, Madam Mayor, you're one of the judges, and I know I am, meatball, not chili. Chili we already had. And the meatball one is on the 23rd, and I think you're a judge and so am I, so that'll be interesting to participate in that, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the Mighty Meatball Challenge at the Durham Legion will be very exciting on February 23rd, 4 p.m., and there is entertainment. That information will be on our electronic sign on Thursday, just for citizens to know that. I did accept being a judge, as I was for the chili cook-off contest, which I really enjoyed. But now I am not able to judge for the Mighty Meatball Challenge. So there will be another judge in my place, and I just look forward to judging again with the Legion. But thank you, and best of luck with that. All right. Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Yes, just a couple of items I wanted to mention. Yesterday, went over to the arena. No, sorry, not yesterday. It was Sunday. Thinking this is Monday, but now it's Tuesday, so that was Sunday. That's my explanation. Anyways, Sunday there was a huge crowd at our arena facility for Minister Blair, provincial or federal Minister Blair, was there to talk about gun regulations and the changes that are they're looking at in terms of gun ownership and trying to get a handle on illegal guns out there in particular. So it was interesting. I wasn't there for the whole event, but when I was there was people talking. Some people come from Ottawa, some people come from Peterborough, just for that event that day. So people were really interested in talking to the minister and putting it out there what their concerns were. And there are a lot of concerns with gun owners feeling that the ministers, the regulations, the changes that they're making are maybe not hitting the right spot. So there was some angst in the community and in the group that was there. But huge turnout. I remember the last time I had to park at a soccer field because there wasn't a spot at the arena. That's just that full. So that was great. Just wanted to make a mention that in the February 15th to 18th weekend coming up, we have that's a Family Day weekend, and we have a number of events that are going on through West Grey in terms of our figure skating and rollerblading and activities all around West Grey, but also we have a number of activities within Durham, which are called through the Frazzlefest organization, and so there's a bunch of activities going on that. So look for the posters, look for the advertisement about those events, and hopefully you'll take part. I also wanted to mention that I was at the Roma conference, and one of the sessions I went to that stood out for me was Haldimand County talked about their economic development program, and I hope that we can share. They have a bit of a video that we can share and look at that, because they had some great ideas of how to help with economic development, in particular their downtown cores that needed refurbishing and that type of thing. So that was a good one. And I'd just like to also mention, I'm not sure if it's been out there publicly or not, but I also like to mention that since our last council meeting, and since a number of us were at the Roma conference at that time, that we did lose a councillor, Carol Lawrence, during that time, who has been involved in municipal politics for 42 years. So unfortunately, Carol found a tough end sort of thing, and so a lot of people in the community, I'm sure, will miss her involvement in politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Herkert.
Yes, so I also attended Roma. It's a great collection of the small rural municipalities coming together and discussing situations that we have going on in our rural areas. Learning from other municipalities what is working for them, and trying to see where we're at and assess what we have going on and how to amplify and get some of these programs working here in our area. I would say that as Councillor Townsend mentioned, the PPS being opened up would be helpful in our planning. If the provincial policy statement changed, then everything that we align to might shift. And so maybe we could get some inclusive zoning on housing, or some of those other non-financial methods of switching gears to open up housing or the possibility of smaller homes and so on. So anyway, I found that Roma conference to be very informational, and I look forward to bringing back a full report to Committee of the Whole. I think there's several programs that might work for us. I know that Southgate was successful in getting an asset management consultation with some high-level engineers to help with their asset management. I forwarded some information on to Carrie. I look forward to bringing that back to our council, to our committee of the whole to have further discussions. Snow volleyball, check what's up at Ayton on the Facebook page. Snow volleyball is coming up for Ayton. And Regional Job Fair up in Owen Sound at the Bay Shore is February 21st from 2 to 7 p.m. and that's put on by Grey County.
Good, thank you. And we look forward to that report at Committee of the Whole, and I know other members of council will have reports as well, so that will be a really, really detailed meeting that we'll have. Deputy Mayor?
There's no thunder left. I'll echo pretty much everything that's come across the board here. I also was at Roma. I think one of the, again, we've all experienced different things, but we're not unique. Every municipality that I talk to is experiencing the same difficult tasks that we're faced with. Budget cuts, tough budget decisions, infrastructure, affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not alone, and hopefully we can all, I've got some contacts now. Maybe we can collectively come up with some things that we can all kind of work towards a common denominator to make things move forward. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that. So this past Sunday, I had an opportunity to meet with MP Larry Miller and MPP Bill Walker, so we had quite a good conversation. And as well, in advance of the firearm public consultation with Minister Bill Blair, I had an opportunity to meet and have a discussion with him along with our police chief. So that was very informative and productive, and I welcome the opportunity to dialogue with our senior levels of government. It's always a pleasure and a good thing. All right, so I think we've exhausted that particular item, and well done to members of council on that, conveying all the information to our citizens. Item 10, delegations, and we are a little ahead of time for that. However, we do have the delegates here, so I'm just going to ask the members of council if you would have any issue if we just move that up on the agenda. You're okay with that? Clerk Turner, are you fine with that, or do you have another comment?
As long as no other individuals were planning to attend at 10:30 to hear the
okay.
delegation. That's the only concern there might be.
That is a very good concern. So with that, we're not too far off. So thank you for coming early. That I strive to be early at events. So noted. So with that, we do have an opportunity to look at item 12 then, which is our sole staff report from the Director of Finance and Treasurer. So why don't we deal with that in light of the time and what the clerk has said. So, Director Mighton, would you like to start off with the approval of voucher number 25-2018 and also the voucher number 3-2019? Do you have anything to add before we start the questions?
No, just if there's any questions.
Questions, members of council? Councillor Herger.
Okay, it's not very frequent that we get a refund, but on page 53, there's reimbursement, general filtration and NSF International 2018. I see that spread out between Newstat Water and the Durham Water System for about $4,400. Could you just explain what happened or how we get a refund?
Is it in the 2019? Which page did you say, sorry?
53, 54. Maybe. Yeah, water sewer Newstat and water sewer Durham for reimbursement. And each one is $4,459.
So that's, we purchased, or Veolia on our behalf purchased filters, I believe, and we are reimbursing Veolia for the cost of those filters, so it's not a credit on there. It's, instead of buying directly from the general filtration, we're reimbursing Veolia, our water sewer managers for, and that's why it's shown on both Water Durham and Newstead, is because they go split between both of those systems.
Does that help? Okay. Further questions? Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for our director. So on page 52, there's some charges regarding the ice management, which we understand we had some issues with fragile ice this year. But also, there's some charges for Durham Middle Dam maintenance and Durham Upper Dam maintenance. And I'm just wondering, are those yearly charges? One's 4,000, one's 9,000. Are those yearly charges from Saugeen Valley, or they are yearly charges?
Yeah, it's an annual charge based on what Saugeen Valley has actually spent on their end
Right.
to maintain those. They apply for a grant, and then we pay the balance
Okay.
on there for those
Okay.
structures.
Right. I thought that's what that was. And another one on page 54, page 3 in yours. I know we had an individual with a sewer blockage. I just wanted to clarify that there was a charge of $480 that would be charged back to the homeowner if it was not on our property, right? And I think in this case it was within the homeowner's area.
That is correct.
Okay, right. So just to clarify that even though we inspected and I guess they brought in someone to fix it, that we don't cover the cost. That's their cost. Okay, thank you. Just wondering about the charges on the Hanover. I presume this is Southeast Bypass Study, 50 cent of Thompson Rogers invoice. Is that like $541? Is that the end of those charges? I know we've had a lot of charges over the years with that. Is that an ongoing thing until that gets built, or can you bring us up to date on that, Director?
Good point, Councillor Hutchison. What I'd like to do, because a lot of the council here are unaware of that past or previous project that is undergoing, I have talked to the consultant that is overseeing the project, Cobite Engineering, and I think it would be a good if we brought them in on one of my committee of the whole to apprise council and bring them up to speed as to where we were, where we've gotten to. And this is the, just for a quick summary, this is for the potential development of West Grey property on the southeast corner of Hanover. It's about facilitating a road, putting a road through, so it's a cost-sharing venture between Hanover and West Grey. They provide the services, we put the road in. It's still West Grey's property, but it's to enhance the development opportunities in the southeast quadrant of Hanover. I think I've got that right, southeast quadrant.
Yeah.
So that would be appropriate to bring that to a committee of the
Yeah.
whole. Thank you. Further questions,
So
Councillor
there
Hutchinson?
will be, to answer that quickly, there will be ongoing costs associated with that project, yes.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, and being that the high school will start up this coming fall, hopefully we would push that through sooner than later, sort of thing, because I think that would be a great addition for access to get to from off County Road back into the high school area there.
And right now, it's at the position where it's going to go to the environmental approvals and stuff, so things are going to slow down immensely there. But once that comes through, once we get the approvals, then that'll set the stage for the next part of it.
Good. And one further question, page 71, had to do with streetlight repairs down at down Mount Forest Way. Let's see the right page here. And I'm just wondering if we had LEDs there, and if we did, why are we, it's Plumeville area, $529. I'm just wondering why we're doing repairs already.
So the actual lights, to answer that quick, the actual lights weren't at fault. It was the photocells that needed replacement. on each of those light standards. One of the things that I, just quickly, there is a light standard that it's on the corner of the Ministry of Transportation, Highway 6 and corner of Grey Road 6. I don't understand why West Grey's footing the bill for that light standard, because it's physically nowhere near any of West Grey. It's an upper tier light, which if you look in Grey County, a lot of the Grey County county roads and provincial highway roads all have light standards at their Highway 12. If you go here, I'm trying to think, another county road, I believe Grey Road 9, south of, and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to get that switched around, because I don't feel West Grey should be on the hook for that light.
Okay, I think
So-
that's great, and if you
Yeah.
could please follow up with that and then report back to council, that would be great. Hopefully it'd be a very good piece of information that we have, that we're not paying for that further. Thank you for identifying that, Director. Further questions? Councillor Hergert.
I have one note. The Saugeen Municipal Airport here is the first installment of a 2019 airport levy.
Okay.
We are working on a budget, and as we know, we're trying to go through line by line. We're a new commission. This is just half of 2018. This wouldn't, it wouldn't be finalized yet. Okay, saying that.
Good, appreciate that comment. Thank you very much for bringing that comment forward. Other questions on this? All right, seeing none, I do have a motion before me, and that is moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 25-2018 and voucher number 3-2019 in the amount of $244,358.16 and $460,764.81, respectively, of the municipality of West Grey. Questions? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Clerk. Director Mighton, we do have a second item on your report. This is a request for donation of ice time at the Ayton Arena. Do you have any comments on this?
Just as I've noted, just to give a frame of reference, historically, the previous council did not waive fees or ice rental because they felt that the services are already subsidized by the tax base. It's not a full cost recovery, but that was just to give you some context of what's happened in the past.
Okay, for this particular item, the director is seeking council direction. You have the attachment to her report. Deputy Mayor, you have some additional information that you could provide to the council just based on the request. I think there's been some fine tuning on it. Could you please share that?
Sure, Ken. The request for both facilities has now been changed. They weren't able to book as many teams for this tournament, so they're going. The request now is 8 to 4:30 for ice at Durham only. And then I believe the hall, they have a price with the use of the hall included in that time frame. It's $75 per hour. And then they're looking for the hall furtherance usage from 4:30, call it to 7:30. So I just said 8 o'clock, and I believe that was an additional $125 that they were quoted from the arena manager. So it's now, Ayton's out of it, and we're just over the Norman B facility, and it's just down to the Durham Arena.
Okay. And could you please just identify how you got the up-to-date information that it was the author of the original request, just please?
Sure, that came in, as a phone call yesterday from Jim Yunker, who's one of the organizers. He also sent a text, I asked him to email it, but it did come in a text format, as well as a follow-up phone call. That was yesterday afternoon.
Okay, so that's the up-to-date information. Any questions from members of council on this request? Okay, seeing, thank you, Councillor Hutchinson.
Well, we had this discussion, I believe it was in Committee of the Whole, about whether we're going to look at in-kind contributions through volunteer organizations and so on. So I don't think we've made a decision on it, so I'm not sure how we go about this unless we're going to set a precedent on this one and then make a decision after. But it is one of those things that we had that discussion about if what we do for one group, do we do for the other group, and we do, we are setting a precedent. So I'm fine either way, but I just think we haven't really made that decision yet.
And you're quite right. We've had this discussion, and certainly through budget deliberations, we've had the discussion, and it's still open-ended. You're quite right at this point for that, in terms of how we're going to address it overall for our groups and organizations. So that one has not been determined. We do have this one before us because the event is taking place February 11th. So I guess that's why this one came forward. And it actually was submitted quite early in January. All right, any further questions? How does council wish to deal with this? Councillor Hutchinson.
Further to that, so are we waiving all costs sort of thing, like for the arena ice rental and for the hall? Is that the request?
Well, the request is for the ice time and the hall, and it would be up to council it would be up to council if you wish to adhere to that request, or in part, in full, or not at all. So the staff is just looking for direction in terms of how council wishes to address it. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, furtherance to the conversation with Jim as well. He is a volunteer firefighter, so what he referenced yesterday in our conversation was that if they were raising funds for, say, the fire department, that's a totally different animal, and they'd be prepared to pay the full facility charges. Based on this one, it's all the emergency services that are, I think there's 8 teams in total, he told me, and 100% of what they're doing is going for West Youth. So that's what they're, again, he emphasizes if they were trying to do something for the fire department or any of the other services, that they would be prepared at that time to use the facility and pay the fee.
Clerk Turner and then Councillor Hamilton.
And just as the Director of Finance has mentioned, previous council has not decided to waive any requests for fees. And obviously, this is a new council, and you can make your own decisions. I do, however, exercise caution. This is certainly a worthwhile event, but there are many other worthwhile events and requests for similar waiving of fees or reduction of fees. There's individuals that have lost a home, for instance, and they want there's a group that fundraises for them. They want to use the facility free. There's individuals that unfortunately are suffering from various illnesses, and they want to hold a fundraising event. And then, therefore, that would be another case. So there's other seniors groups, youth sports groups that also would look towards a reduction or waiving of fees. So the precedents that may be set by this, I would certainly foresee other groups, if they see this being passed, that they would be making the same request. And of course, that in turn will impact the budget and the bottom line for the Recreation Department.
Councillor Hamilton.
I echo Clerk Turner's thinking, and it would be setting a precedent, and I would appreciate a more wholesome, fulsome discussion that can be the whole as we're making our way through budget. Should council arrive at a place that we were to provide grants or provide a reduced cost, should we do that, that it be transparent, that there be a process, that there be criteria, that it be open and available to everyone, and that everyone understand that process. So I'm not comfortable approving this request today.
Mm-hmm. And certainly it is up for discussion through our budget deliberations. So thank you for that. Councillor Hutchinson?
Just an alternate solution, maybe since if we were to not go by this today, but we are, as you said, we're looking at budget, maybe that would be the time to look at our organizations that ask for funds. Maybe at that time we could make put the West for Youth as one of our organizations that we would make a contribution to, which would in turn maybe it can be through this group to help with that fundraising or something. It's just another way of looking at it, sort of thing, so that we don't set a precedent by doing this at this point until we've got some kind of agreement or policy in place. Because as Mr. Turner said, that I think we're going to have a lot of people knocking on the door wanting the same thing. So until we get something ironed out here, I think that would be a way of, we'll look at maybe making a contribution to West for Youth through our charitable organizations when we get to that part of the budget.
Okay, good, thank you. Further questions? Councillor Herger.
Thank you, Mark, for the history there. I do think that the firefighters should be supported. I think that they should be supported maybe just via my own pocketbook at this moment.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate and applaud the firefighters for coming forward and raising the money for West for Youth. And I also would like to make a donation to that cause personally, but we do not have a policy. We do not have that ironed out yet. So I'll just make my own donation, and I would encourage anybody else, if they would like to do the same, we could go that way.
Yeah, and thank you for that and bringing that forward. Certainly that was the plan of myself and the deputy to donate to this cause. Very worthwhile. That was on a personal approach as well. But good. I'm looking for a motion, members of council, on this, if there's anything at this point on how we wish to deal with it. Councillor Shea.
I move that we deny the request.
Okay. Seconder, please. Councillor Hamilton. Questions? Calling the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That does carry. And we will have that full detailed discussion through our budget deliberations, and so that we've put a criteria in place and then a follow-through on it. All right. Thank you for that. Now, we are at the time where we can deal with our delegations. So that is now item 10. We've completed everything on the Director of Treasurer and Finances report. Thank you very much, Director Mighton. So our first delegation is with Jill Umbach, Planning and Network Coordinator, Bruce Grey Poverty Task Force, Laura Needham, Dietitian, Grey Bruce Health Unit, Sandra Holier, all right, and she was with the Getting Ahead Facilitator Adult Learning Center. This delegation is in regards to the Grey Bruce Food Chart, Grey Bruce Poverty Issues. So welcome, and please enlighten us.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come today. Laura and myself have been working for many, many years with the Poverty Task Force, and you may or may not have encountered us. We work across Grey and Bruce counties, and we're really looking at upper tier and lower tier engagement as to how we work in the community. To start, we've just given a brief package for everybody on what we do, and we've provided some infographics that are relevant to some of the things that you were discussing at Roma. So a lot of the work that we do is related to bringing together agencies that work all across Grey and Bruce counties and agencies that work in your community in West Grey together to discuss around poverty reduction strategies, policies that we need to advocate for at the federal and at the provincial and here in our own municipalities, as well as at the county levels. And we look at what connects us all. So you talked a lot about transportation. So we look at transportation, we look at housing, income security, food security. We look at health equity. How do you access equitable services in the rural area versus the urban area? How does the funding formulas set up by the province or the federal government work for us locally? So we do a lot of consultations at the national level as well as at the provincial level, and then obviously engage with people that sit on the Grey County Council as well as coming down here and saying, well, that coming down here sounds terrible. I didn't mean to say that. I'm from Hanover. And one of the critical things that we do is we also engage with a lot of people from our communities with grounded expertise. So we have a group that's called the Community Voices. These are people with lived experience on what it's like to live with low income or what it's like to be challenged with, say, mental health combination, food insecurity, challenges with finding affordable housing. So they sit on our advisory board. So we are available to any community members. It's voluntary to join us. Everything is open. We have a website and things like that. So just so you know, we are here as a resource for you when you look at some of these strategies, when you're engaging with the ministers, which is wonderful. I think in the last 3 months, we've had more ministerial engagement than we've ever had in the previous years. We have an advantage in that we seem to be a very popular location these days because of the two respective ministers that we have as our MPPs. So we take advantage of that, and we work very closely with MPP Lisa Thompson as well as MPP Bill Walker to engage. The other aspect of the work that we do is working in the communities on a variety of projects. And so we work in the communities, and Laura and I are both going to speak a little bit to that. Our structure is set up with a steering committee that is made up of the head of social services, Barb Fetty from Grey County, and her counterpart, Christine McDonald at Bruce County. We do work across both counties. So we do know our strategies are different, the fundings, our cycles are slightly different, but at the municipal level, we have that joint cooperation going across the two counties. And partially that's why we do that is because we know people move. We know that people are moving across, that border line between Hanover and Walkerton is just a line on the map, but we know that people move from place to place. They go where the services are. And so we need to ensure that we are reaching out across both counties. We also have partnerships with Huron, Wellington, and Simcoe counties for the same reason. We know that people will move towards services and therefore put stressors on the area. We know a lot of people right now with regards to affordable housing are coming up from other counties into our area. We have 850 families on the wait list right now in Grey County for affordable housing. We know that close to 50% of those people are not based in our local area, but they're trying to get in on our list. We know we have a challenge with that. So one of the reasons we have come today is because affordable housing is a hot topic. And it's something that we are doing a lot with at our housing action group. So it's an informational delegation right now to tell you a little bit about our housing, our advocacy level that we work with, how we can work together to both provide information to you from our perspective and our connections, but also how we can advocate together to find some of those creative solutions for what do we do when we're not getting more money transferred down to our municipalities, and yet we've got people waiting for housing. The other aspects that we have been working with as well is health equity. We're developing some training materials, working with doctors. We have a Bridges Out of Poverty program, and with that program, we will be operating throughout the area and providing training for people who are on low income. 2 years ago, we were here in Durham at the Arena. We had a Getting Ahead program, and we had some people come and join us on that graduation ceremony. Our people from Durham and West Grey in particular join us in Markdale and Hanover as well. So upcoming in the spring, we'll be offering in March an 8-week program called Getting Ahead. It's a really intensive program that looks at local resources of a person. It looks at the community resources. It looks at their own individual resources. And it's an empowering 8 weeks. We are anticipating that we will have people from Durham and the area, particularly within West Grey, in Markdale. We are also having a new program called Building Emotional Resources that looks at resilience. It's a 12-week course that will be in Hanover, and we're expecting people will come from this area. That's offered to Getting Ahead graduates. And then we're following up in September with a new Circles program. So these are things that we detail them on our website, and we're happy to share into the future. So it's just a note of what's coming up. We're excited that this current government is going to continue with the Coordinated Transportation Program funding, at least for this year. We, as you may know, as new councillors, if you've been briefed on the transportation issue, we had paused, and now it's going ahead for a short period of time. But that's a big issue. The affordable housing, access to housing, transportation, food security, all of these are integrated. We know that we have 16.8% of West Grade children between 0 and 17 living below the poverty line. Ontario average is 17% for children living in poverty. We know there's a 1.7 vacancy rate, so it's challenging. We know that the rents are competitively high right now for people to try and find affordable housing in our area. We know that 60% of people on low income are actually working, but they're working they're working 2 to 3 jobs right now, trying to make enough. So we know we don't have living wage employers, a huge number of them in our area, for everybody. So that's a big challenge. One of the big things linked to the poverty work that we do in trying to reduce it is highlighting the links between food security and housing. And Laura's going to speak to that.
So, you've already talked about those. There we go. We're back to the food charter. So I do chair the Food Security Action Group as part of the Poverty Task Force, as well as work as a dietitian with public health. And one of the things that we release as a health unit, and usually in coordination with the Poverty Task Force, is the nutritious food basket data. And that is our cost of eating well. So I believe you were sent that.
Should be part of it.
Yes. And what... Perfect. So what you can actually see with that infographic is some case scenarios, and it shows that for certain individuals in our communities that affording food is just not possible. The costs of housing in particular really do, once they go over the 30% that's recommended, it becomes unaffordable to have those other expenses. Food is one of the necessary expenses that's the most flexible, so it's the one that we tend to see taking the hit first. People are willing to sacrifice quantity or quality of food before they'll turn off their utilities. So that is where housing and food security really have that close relationship, because if housing is not affordable, then food is suddenly not affordable, and we don't obviously want to see that in our community. The Food Security Action Group works at both a policy level and at a programming level, so frontline. So as a group, one of our first activities was to create the food charter. And the food charter is a vision statement, essentially. It's designed to show what our community wants for their food system, what would make it a healthy, sustainable, food secure community. So we did do public consultations connected with specific community groups that are involved in the food system, and these were the values that were expressed by our community. Food charters in general are a foundational document, so they're not a regulatory document. They have no financial implications. It's merely a position, a value statement that is used to help different organizations kind of explain and justify their actions. So we do know many community organizations are acting on food security. They're acting within the food system, and this can be a document that helps support that action, because if we know what's valued in our community, we can act on that. So filling the gap with food systems planning and increasing the understanding of food system. I can tell you as a public health dietitian that there's a huge gap in food literacy and what people understanding how food gets from the producers all through the food system and then to their plate, and then what happens afterwards with the food waste system. So it's a conversation starter. Right now, we have some of the endorsements that we've received. I've put some of the ones that are closest to this area up on that slide. Just to give a key, I don't think this is all of them, to be honest.
No, it's only one slide.
It's only one slide. So just to give an idea of the endorsements we have received. With these endorsements, different communities have taken on different actions. Some of them have used it to continue what they were already doing. Some of them have moved forward with other activities. So Grey County incorporated it into their agri-food strategy, and it's represented in there. Grey Highlands has worked a little bit more on their community gardens program.
up in northern Bruce Peninsula, they've been working on gleaning. So that's the action of taking food that would end up in the waste stream, even though it's perfectly good, and redirecting it to where it's needed most. So those are some of the actions that we're seeing, and as an action group, we're supporting. Anything else that you'd like?
No, the only other thing in your package as well, we did prepare what was presented before and gives you a bit of more background or in detail around the charter. It was endorsed by Grey County as a whole, and Grey County at that time directed us as well to engage with all our lower tier municipalities for endorsement too. So one would say, well, Grey County already endorsed it, but we know that coming down to the community, it's really important. We are also, we've just received funding as one of our projects this year from the United Way to be doing food security conversations. So last year we met in the Markdale Food Bank. We'll be meeting again in various food banks around and throughout both counties to have food security conversations. And part of that is getting down on the details around the community food gardens. How do we link CMHA up? How do we do food banks? How do we support them, and how do we transform them in ways that will benefit more people in our community? One of the key issues around getting ahead is addressing mutual respect and reducing some of the stigma we have. We know that there's a lot of people that don't go to the food bank that are food insecure. We know we're not reaching them. We know there's a lot more social isolation these days of our seniors, and we know there's challenges with seniors aging at home. So the type of community conversations we have around food security also involves, are you housing secured, as Laura said, but it's also reaching out to a lot of that social isolation, the stigma about going to the food bank, and addressing the basic needs of the people in our community.
Thank you, and well done. And we appreciate your attendance here as a delegation, and definitely the information that you provided us was very informative and, in my opinion, very eye-opening. And I'm referring to specifically the chart that says, what does it cost to live in Bruce Grey? And it identifies whether it's a single individual and then a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom. So that was really valuable information, and also it helped in terms of how I look at things. This is a very important topic to me, and I've talked to at the county about it as well. I just want to mention that Durham and District Food Bank, Meals on Wheels, and West Grey Chamber of Commerce, have you dialogued with them, and is there an opportunity to connect and provide different support?
Yeah, so that's going to be part of our Community Food Hub project that Jill alluded to. So that was the United Way grant approval that we received recently. So we'll be going to different areas and identifying existing organizations or food security assets, and then seeing how we can link them to other ones and make sure that there's some collaborative action that's going on, and how we can help support that in the different areas. So I know we have a plan to come down here to.
In addition, the Durham Food Bank has participated in our food bank summits. So every 2 years, we've been having and holding food bank summits, specifically targeting the 21 food banks across Grey Bruce. We pull them together. We look at what's happening in the area. We look at challenges. This past year, our summit happened in October, and we brought in people, including the Durham Food Bank, to speak about actually mental health and the type of people that were coming into the food banks and in crisis in the food bank. And we know that most of our food banks it's volunteers, right? And without training. So that was this past food summit. So the Durham Food Bank has been there, and as Laura said, we continue to discuss what the needs are in the general area and where the partnerships exist.
Good. Now, I am interested in the Grey Bruce Food Charter, the organizational endorsement that you've attached. So I do see the signature page, but it does speak to endorsing the charter. Is there information that does get attached to the charter, so it's very clear and very specific to what is included within that charter's activity or call to action, if you will.
Just quickly say, it's actually in a line item that gives you the actual charter within that document, and unfortunately, I didn't attach the document separately. But do you want to speak to that?
Okay.
So
what you attached?
yeah.
So this really is like an information delegation, and then there would be follow-up to it, and then we would consider the signage of the charter at a later time. Is that what I'm gathering from this?
Yes,
Which would be very helpful for our members of council to know
Yes,
that.
I'm happy to come down and speak in more detail to the charter
Yeah.
itself. And
I think that would be most helpful. So thank you for that. Councillor Townsend, then Councillor Hergert.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's going a little deeper in the same topics we've been looking at. So when you relate it to income, you relate it to affordable housing, economic development, sustainability, et cetera. It kind of helps us put that together. At the beginning of the second quarter, we're going to be looking at strategic planning as well. And so we can take this as part of that and tie that in and see where it fits, how we can fit it. So rather than just, adopting it or endorsing it, you can actually see where it applies and where it fits in. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Councillor Hergert.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. As we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you're just getting above sustainability, that's when our community starts to grow, right? We've had delegations at West Grey before from Canadian Mental Health about community gardens and the good work that's going on in Owen Sound. We also have our own community garden here in West Grey. What would be something, we have a community garden, we could always grow it bigger, we could always grow something different. What, we've had the partnership with our community garden to the food bank. So what would be a natural extension of that? Or how could we just grow that in that one area?
so I would be looking at how you can invite the rest of the community to be involved. Because one of the struggles with most food banks is the stigma and social isolation associated with them. Only 25% of food insecure people actually will ever in their lives use a food bank. So if we can invite the entire communities and have them be involved within a food hub instead of looking at it as a food bank, that's what we're trying to do with our food bank summits. That's what the community food hub conversations are working towards, is to have this hub that's centered around food, but everyone's invited.
So the expansion is to community kitchens and a much open, more of a drop-in type setting, less, right now many of our food banks, because they have restricted available resources, do quite a heavy screening process. So you have to prove you're poor every time you go to a lot of the food banks. Some of them have done away. So an example with the Meaford Golden Town Outreach, they don't screen you anymore. They don't require that you provide documents that says this is my income level. If anybody walks in and is hungry, you get fed as per what they have available. And they're doing community kitchens now. So they're gleaning from the local farmers, leftover produce. One of the big issues we've been doing too is bringing the producers that have surplus food and doing that gleaning and bringing it in. Then you need to process it. You need to, can it. And there's a lot of skill sets that are lost, but it's the process in doing that together that reduces the social isolation and reduces the stigma. And that's where the real change comes from. And so that's where we're looking to transform our food banks from just handing out tin goods to increasing fresh, healthy food and involving a larger number of people in the community, the youth in the high schools and the middle schools, and becoming community food centers as opposed to just a place you go once a month to get a small portion. Laura also works with the Good Food Box and making, again, affordable bulk food for people that is healthy, and then teach them how to use it.
Okay, thanks for your presentation. I'll look for this at a future meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Shea.
Thank you for this, and I'm very pleased that you're going to return and give us a further opportunity to engage with your food security charter. But I'm also intrigued by the way that you linked food security and affordable housing. We're sort of grappling with supporting affordable housing as a municipality. Traditionally, lower-tier municipalities don't use taxpayer dollars to support affordable housing. It's considered an upper-tier responsibility, and so that's not our first go-to solution, but we are interested in trying to support affordable housing. And the food security examples that you give seem imaginative and creative and engaging and community-oriented. So when you come back, if you also had suggestions for what we could be doing about affordable housing, I'd love to hear those as well.
Just to let you know, in your package, we did put an infographic called From Housing to Homes. And there's 4 or 5 recommendations that came out of a 3-year research study that we've been doing with Queen's University with regards to housing and some of the things that are within your decision-making power.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Hamilton, please.
Thank you for coming today, and thank you for, not working in silos, bringing all these different issues together and how they really interact in our community. You have these monthly action group meetings. Anyone can come to those meetings, is that correct?
Yes, the Poverty Task Force meets as a whole in Owen Sound and Port Elgin bi-monthly. They are totally open to the public and anybody else. We traditionally have always had councillors at the table. And then we have all of our action groups, they meet monthly, and I'm happy to share back with you. You are more than welcome to join the housing action groups or the food security action group. Quite often we have quite a few councillors in the past. And in fact, we started the Poverty Task Force with councillors at the table. We've become known very uniquely for having done so. Simcoe, actually on a telephone conference with Halifax United Way this Friday to talk about, well, how did you get councillors at the table? How did you talk to them? And how do you do that? We do that at the Poverty Task Force. So you are more than welcome at any point in time to come to any of our action groups. And we would welcome, even if you want to get on the mailing list and get the minutes, they would be contributing to your conversations.
Thank you for that.
And one last question for you. I also sit in the library board, and so we're just getting going, and you're making me think about ways the library can interact with the community and food literacy. And are there any examples that come to mind of library programs or anything in Grey and Bruce?
I mean, it's funny you said that. I was just looking at something that's out of Ottawa, all about food literacy, so I would love to connect about that. And
Great. Let's make that connection.
Well,
And the other thing with the libraries is, at least with Bruce County libraries and a little bit with the Owen Sound ones, because they have slightly different library structures, we support the promotion of the community volunteer income tax clinics. Once again, increasing income in the household is one of our priorities. So we do a lot of promotion around the income tax clinics. We identify areas where they're under-volunteered or under-resourced or where there's a gap, and we annually meet and pull together all the community income tax clinics throughout Grey and Bruce together to look at what are the challenges in our area. So one of the things is the libraries are heavily involved in hosting these free income tax clinics, and I know that they do so in Grey County as well. So thank you to them, and hopefully the board will continue to support the income tax clinics.
okay, well, we very much appreciate that you're here today as a delegation. You've opened up the dialogue here at Council for this. We'll look forward to connecting again to talk further about the charter. I think that's in interest of members of Council. For that, at this point, I'm just going to suggest to Council that we receive your delegation with thanks. More to do, definitely much more to do in the community. So thank you again for attending. All right, we have 2 more delegations, and we're good for timing. The next delegation is Antonios Peters, CEO, and Wendy Peters, Sales Manager, ATEL, request to gain access to the Neustadt Water Tower. Thank you. Yep, just good morning. It's the gray button over on the right.
How's that?
Very good, thanks.
A lot of new faces. Congratulations to those that have come to council and mayor.
Thank you very much.
I hear good things, by the way, so that's good. So ATEL is wireless. I'm not sure how many people are familiar. We have a system on the Durham Water Tower. We track where our demand comes from. As of recent, we've had significant demand in the Neustadt area and Ayton area. there's more demand than we can service quickly. So it's all we are doing is nibbling away and trying to improve the service for broadband to the community. We are focused on Grey Highlands, Southgate, and West Grey. We consider it home. And did everybody get a package?
Yes, it's included with our agenda. Thank you.
Good. So basically, we're looking to move forward with a Newstead water tower, and we're asking if council will consider some kind of agreement to get access to it. The terms will have to be negotiated. I know for the Durham water tower, we exchange services. I think we provide two dumps and I'm not even sure, six connections to townships, sheds, and the municipal office here as well. It's in the brochure. I included some status of what's happening in West Grey. We have about 600 customers connected, and we're adding about 10 a week overall, the 3 townships. The interesting part is we have almost as many customers asking for service that we can't reach. There's no quick solution. Everybody's got a lot of hype about SWIFT. That's going to take 5 to 10 years before that's really benefits the community. It's not. We hear a lot of customers talk about that as well, that they think fiber's coming. It is coming, but it's a long wait. It's not a quick fix. So wireless is still a temporary means to get service to the people now. And again, it doesn't solve everybody's problem either. We have the challenges of topography, terrain. So I don't want to have expectations, and everybody knows that's going to be able to get service. It doesn't work that way. But we are going to get more people connected, and that's about all we can do. So that's about all I have to say. If you got that thing, is if you have any questions.
Excuse me. Thank you for your presentation. We really appreciate it. And certainly fiber optics and internet for our residents of West Grey and our business owners, service providers is very important, and it is a priority of this council. So we appreciate you being here and as a service provider for that. What I'd be looking for from council at the end of the day on this is putting this back to our staff for more dialogue, more information, working with you just in terms of more questions that we need answered. And also, as chair of the Police Services Board, what I would be looking for is some dialogue with our police chief, but also our fire chief, and what the impact, positive, negative, would be for this type of structure on our water tower. So, there's a bit of work to be done here, and we appreciate that you're here, certainly, because internet is, like I said, extremely important. Okay, having said that, I'm going to look around the horseshoe, see if there's any questions. Okay, Councillor Shea.
Thank you. This is informative, and I think it's a laudable initiative that you're taking. Just to be clear, so that I understand, ATEL is run as a commercial company.
Correct.
So this is a business view, and when you did the Durham install, it was in using municipal facilities in exchange for providing some service to the municipality.
That's correct.
So with this one in Newstead, is there some sort of offer of compensation to the municipality?
Oh, absolutely. But it's something that I think that you guys should discuss as a municipality. I don't know if there's anything we can help with, and wherever we can trade, that we mutually benefit. That's always our favorite method of proceeding. We do have sites that we pay a cash value for, so we are flexible. We have to be flexible, and so that's something we're looking for a response from you.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Townsend, then Councillor Hergart.
Thank you for your presentation. As a current ATEL customer, I'm quite happy, and I applaud what you've brought to the region, because it's been difficult for many people to get good internet in the rural areas. I had 2 things that you don't have to answer now, but it's something I'd be looking for, is sort of how is this similar or different from the Durham setup and installation? Risks, obviously, as to where that goes, and ultimately how broad a range, will you be covering when you're done, and I mean more by mapping than description, so we get a feel for that, because I think we do need a lot more, and I agree, SWIFT is going to take a while to get here, and so anything we can do to improve it would be appreciated, so.
Do you want those answers now, or?
No, I think as part of the staff
Okay.
report, those would be things I know I'd be looking for, so.
Councillor Herger.
Yeah, so I was curious, you mentioned that you are currently using unlicensed bandwidth, and is there any possibility that you would move to a licensed bandwidth that would possibly not have any interference with police radios and so on?
We do have some semi-licensed frequencies that we use. The licensed frequencies are very expensive. It's about $10,000 a year per gig. So, everybody talks about how expensive cell phones, and we have one of the most expensive internet and cell phones in the world. And big reason for that is you can point the finger right back to Industry Canada for charging. For example, a 1 gig link in Canada would cost $10,000 a year. In the US, it's $500 a year. So there's a lot of costs associated with licenses. We've opted to use the license-free to help us compete and focus on building fiber out. The unlicensed band should not interfere with the police because the police frequencies are licensed. They're on their own spectrum. We are not anywhere near them. So there's no reason for that to cause any distortion whatsoever.
That would be my only concern. In having spoken with the police chief in the last few days, this was a concern. I actually anticipated he would be here today, but anyway, just as long as we could clear that is a non-issue, then I would look forward to some sort of agreement, terms being negotiable and everything like that, an agreement.
Yeah, we'll definitely put it to staff and to our police chief and fire chief for sure, that that is absolutely using due diligence. Further members of council have questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very important. Again, I echo that it's necessary to have internet here. So there will be a follow-up with staff for discussion, and so we look forward to that information. So thank you very much for your delegation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, our third delegation, our third and final delegation today is with David Sugarman, Chair of the Durham Art Gallery, 2 initiatives and partnership proposal. Mr. Sugarman, welcome.
Hi.
Sorry, thank you for grabbing my attention here. Excuse me, David.
No problem.
Councillor Shea.
So as we discussed further,
Oh, yes.
I will excuse myself based on a conflict of interest. I have a family member who currently has a financial contract with the Durham Art Gallery, and so I'll leave the room for this presentation.
Thank you. Very appropriate for you to declare it and to leave. Thank you very much. So just one moment. Thank you, Councillor. When it's a public item, it is absolutely not a complete necessary to leave the room, but it is appreciated that when there is a declaration of conflict of interest on an item, that a member of council does remove themselves from the discussion. All right, let's start again.
Good.
Mr. Sugarman.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Durham Art Gallery. I've submitted a letter that went out, I believe, with the agenda outlining our plans. I've got a further package that we're going to be distributing shortly that sort of gives a bit of a background and a history on what the gallery is currently doing, along with a budget for our initiative, right? I guess I'm here mostly to see what questions you have and how I can explain what we're doing to you in a positive way, right? So I don't want to really read the letter again, but I would if that's going to help.
Okay, so at this point in your delegation, you are looking for questions, if any, from our members of council.
Yes,
Am I
and
understand that correct?
we've put forward a very specific ask,
Yep.
right? I've tried to, we're in the process of, it's a lot of arms and legs in this process, right?
Yeah.
We're dealing not only with an innovative social finance proposal in the Mortgage for Artists, right, for which the Royal Bank is committed. And they were the first people I went to, right, figuring if I got the bank on board, then everyone else would be easier. They were going to be the hardest sell for sure in some ways, right? The second part was dealing with the landlords. We're in the middle of negotiations with them. They've been extremely reasonable. I expect they're going to be a little more reasonable, right, as part of the process. We're looking at a 3-year trial run on this. The gallery is certainly willing to put their money behind it, right? As part of the budget, you'll see that the gallery is going to pick up all the one-time expenses. We are asking council, and we're also going to ask Grey County, who I have a meeting with on Friday with their economic development department, and they've expressed a lot of support for the idea, right? So, like I say, there's sort of a lot of parts coming together, and everyone really has to sort of, if they all come together, it'll work, I guess is my bottom line. Right?
Sure, and I think they're very inventive and very interesting proposals. I think what I'd be looking for after the questions to you is that I would expect that council would want this put over to our budget deliberation process, more specifically through grants for organizations and having a discussion there, and just seeing what the possibilities, if would be on that. Having said that, are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. I was just going to now defer to a member of council, but did you have a statement that you...
No, I guess my only part is that we view it as more as an infrastructure project in some ways rather than a grant to an organization, right? Okay. Based on the fact that we're looking at populating the downtown, right, and which is only going to be a help to everyone around, and we view that as part of infrastructure, the same way we view the taking over of 105 Garifraxa as to some extent as an infrastructure initiative, right? At the same time, we realize we're a community organization, and indeed part of it can fall under that grants to organizations, but at the same time, we feel that we're aiming bigger than that in some ways.
Point well taken.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I think the idea, I think, is great anytime that we can encourage growth in our downtowns. Yes. I would suggest that maybe this should come back to economic development because we haven't had a meeting, but we have one coming up, and to me, that sort of fits the bill there, that maybe that's a place that we could have further discussion. I do have a question, though, and maybe just a point of clarification.
Please.
In terms of you're looking for, the commitment from West Grey is looking for $10 per hour for the first year, for 7.5 hours a day, 6 days a week. Can you explain a little more, like what is that for? Is that giving us a space?
Well, we're looking at, the proposal is the gallery is going to put in an artists cooperative in there, and it will be sat by the artists, right? These are all local people who've lived here for 20, 30 years, who know all the waterfalls, who've eaten in all the local restaurants. And the idea is that to train them to be tourist and artistic and economic advisors, right? So that when people come in, they're fully prepared and able to give information along that line. I mean, if I look for years, the tourist office was in the little waterworks plant across from the back of you know where it is, right? Tim's, right? And I never saw anyone in there ever, right? So I think this initiative will allow much more visibility, right? And our idea is to train the artists so that they can feed back to people who come in, tourists and people who are looking to move to the area, people who are exploring the mortgages for artists, people who are interested in setting up businesses here, right? And they can actually talk to someone who's a small business owner in the area, right? And knows the area from both a living in the area and and tourism, right? So they would provide that service all day, every day.
Oh, I'm just kind of reflecting on the cultural opportunities to just enhance our community fabric. It's just the world's our oyster, really. So, I'm very intrigued by your delegation. So, appreciate that. Councillor Townsend, then Councillor Herger.
Thank you very much. I was very, very impressed by the breadth of your proposal.
Thank you.
When you look at what you're proposing, you're talking about marketing West Grey, you're talking about using the skills of people that are in the artistic local area knowledge base, both of those sides. You're also rejuvenating downtown potentially that building and making it useful again, which again brings revenue back. It does all kinds of things, for the community that we've been looking at, we know we need to address. I concur with Councillor Hutchison. I think economic development is where it goes. I think the financial comes up in the budget discussion. We're continuing, we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that you may not have been here, but there's 2 meetings coming up in February to hopefully complete our budget cycle. These kind of things is what we're deferring to that as far as making an absolute financial decision, but looking at that and seeing where it fits so it's viable. I think economic development and back to council. So, but thank you very much. I think it's a great job at looking at a different way of applying the skills and knowledge we have and bringing it back to the municipality and the county.
Thanks. I did a lot of research in figuring that I didn't invent any of this, right? All the ideas that I put out here were frankly stolen from various other programs in the States, mostly, right? Some in Canada, and also numerous conversations with urban planners, right? Who I happen to know, mostly at York University, and in trying to come up with something that leveraged the money we have. I mean, it all comes down to the fact that the gallery got this great fortune. I think everyone's aware. Right, we were extremely blessed, right? And in the board's discussions, along with Peter, who was the instigator of this great fortune, we really wanted to figure out a way to leverage it back into the community, right? Because we could just sit on this money and invest it in bank stocks, and it would go downtown somewhere in Toronto, and we'd never see it again, right? And sure, we'd live off the interest. Maybe we'd earn 3 or 4% a year. We'd be able to offer a few more programs or hire an extra person, but I think we can do so much more with it. I think by leveraging it, we could turn the 1 million in some ways into maybe 10 million, if we're looking at it properly, right? So,
And then the vibrancy of our communities will just be outstanding. So I see major potential with this. Councillor Herger.
Yes. First off, thank you so much for all the consultative work that you did last year. I think that really brought out what our community loves about the art gallery, what we're still wanting. I applaud the commitment towards the early stages of getting this even organized. Like you say, it's not reinventing the wheel, but let's just give credit where credit's due, right?
There's lots of moving parts.
Yeah. So this truly is connecting the dots. This is taking something that our community already loves and developing it and growing it bigger. I'm looking at how can we get all of West Grey included in this. Right now it's somewhat of a Durham initiative, and I can appreciate that. It's got to start somewhere, right? So how are you proposing to get the outreach out to other parts of West Grey?
Well, we're looking at the Mortgage for Artists program would apply not only to Durham, but also to like Newstead, Ayton, and Elmwood, right? Our major downtowns, I guess. I don't think I left anyone out of that, but there are a couple small places around I may have. So, and with the $3 million, looking at average costs of buildings, right, we would probably be able to fund 20
so
buildings.
That is open up for all of West Grey?
Yeah, yep. Certainly it would be open to all of West Grey, right? I mean, there are not enough buildings in Durham to fund 20, right, okay, that are available. If we got 10 in Durham, 6 buildings would, if we could fund 6 mortgages in Newstead, that would fill all of downtown Newstead, right? And, 3 or 4 more in Ayton and a couple in Elmwood, right? So.
Is this leading on to like an artist map of some sort that would
down the line, they would be part of the studio tours for sure, right? The other part of this is the Tilton Hilton, sorry, I'm trying to get out of that name, 105 Garifraxa, right, would provide a center and an artist hub, right? And the idea is it gives them a place to sell their work and to offer courses for the whole community. Part of the fact of signing on to the Mortgage for Artists is that the people accessing that would be required to give a certain amount of teaching time every year and participate in a certain number of studio open tours, that kind of thing. We're also looking to use their works to fill all the empty spaces in both the West Grey municipal offices, but I've also talked with the Royal Bank, and they're willing to put up art down in their space, along with like Chicory Common, Garifraxa, all the other buildings around Northern Credit Union that have these beautiful walls where we could be having local art up, right, and highlighting that as a business, You know, these people are all businesses, they're all small business operators, right, in essence. So we're looking to expand it a lot like that. We want to have an art tour where people actually can come around and go into not only the co-op, but go into the Royal Bank, come to the municipal offices, that kind of thing, and, you know, libraries, and we want art in all those places. Then we would provide the art. We'd basically be this little art rental.
We do have some empty walls here.
I noticed. And we're intending to fill them.
I have another question.
Please.
Is 105 Garifraxa, is that handicap accessible?
Yes, it is. There's a bathroom that is almost ready to be handicapped accessible. It just needs a couple bars. There's a ramp. The access is on the Highway 4 side,
Yep.
right, which is perfectly level,
Yep.
right? And the whole, now, there may be one little space in there that's not wheelchair accessible. I'd have to double check that. It's sort of divided up into 5 or 6 different rooms or different spaces. I think one of them maybe is not, which would be the north space in the middle, right? But I can, 90% is, and we intend to be wheelchair compliant, for sure.
Okay, I am very supportive of the concept. I'm not sure what West Grey is going to do exactly. I do think that it should be referred back to economic development. I was going to move that we refer it to the Economic Development Committee with a mandate to refer deliverables back to West Grey Committee of the Whole to support this initiative. So
Great.
at its basic level, I want to support this. I think this is good for our community. It's community building, it's gaining more West Grey ambassadors to go out and get people back and have them come here and really thrive and live here and love it. So that would be my motion that I would like.
All right, well, I'll take that as an indication of a motion at this point. I do want our CAO just to respond to the art on the walls, because there's been discussion on that. So would you mind? And then Councillor Hamilton.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, for the question. And I have to say that when Mr. Sugarman and I met last Friday, I pitched the idea of using our lovely, freshly painted walls to showcase some of the talent in our community, which I've seen done successfully at other municipal offices. We have an awful lot of traffic come through this building, and it would be a wonderful way for us to showcase that sector that we're trying to develop.
Yes, well done, well done. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you for coming today and for the delegation. I look forward to receiving the package. And picking up on Councillor Hergert, that community engagement piece from last summer, I can see how that's bringing all the pieces together. So often we're working in our silos, and here you are breaking out of the silo. You're taking the good fortune of the art gallery and all the good work you're doing in the art gallery, and you're exploding into our West Grey community. And I do like chasing down a little further about, so it's Durham centered, and then how do we build out of Durham and affect change within Newstead and Ayton and Elmwood, our other downtown cores, and I can hear that's on the radar of your plan. So I appreciate that. And I know that we have a lot of artists. Those are a huge resource in our community, and what a great way to elevate that great talent we have already. Could you explain a little further the cooperative model, what that looks like, artists in the community and this cooperative?
That's it's a work in progress, right?
Okay.
What I've done so far is I've put out feelers to all the local artists, right, professional artists. These are people who do this as a living, right? And to see how best we can support them in this initiative. One of the, I'm not sure yet whether they're going to work as a committee of the gallery or set up as a separate registered co-op on their own, right? That's part of the ongoing discussion. Everything is I've reached the point now where I need some feedback from West Grey, right? I'm very encouraged by what I hear so far, enough that I'm going to schedule an artist meeting for next week. I was waiting just to see whether I was sort of kicked out the door or warmly embraced. I love the warmly embrace. So now I know that I feel confident now when I go to Grey County on Friday, and I'm going to set up a meeting with the artist to see how best that would work. Basically what the gallery is going to do is take a very low percentage from the artist. Most galleries, it's usually a 60-40 split, 60% to the artist, 40% to the gallery. In this case, we're going to take much less. We're going to take, it looks like at this point, 80% to the artist, 20% to the gallery, right? On the basis that the artist will offer a lot of other things that are intangible, like courses. The one idea is to have the space open every day for a couple hours for people to come in for the daily draw. It's the name we're using. It may not stick, but that space at 105 Garifraxa will be open, and there'll be art set out, and anyone can come in and interact with the co-op artist who's on duty, right? And then that co-op artist will be responsible for, like, anyone who comes in and wants tourism information or business development information. They will also be able to speak well to the Mortgage for Artists program, and they'll also be able to help out whoever comes in. If a mom and her 2 kids want to come in and do some art because they just need to get out of the house, right, at 10 in the morning, then that's a possibility. We want to set up relationships with the seniors, with the meal on the Hill. I want to talk to these wonderful women who are here talking about the poverty situation, right, to see how we can also offer that, right? Good. The other part of this is to offer it, to make the space into some kind of pop-up trade show space, which would include, like, the local agricultural people, because these days food is culture in a lot of ways, right? And our local furniture makers and our local instrument makers, of which there are numerous ones in West Grey, right? To do like quick 3-day pop-ups where the first evening is more trade, where we're inviting real estate agents, for example, if it was going to be furniture. We're inviting home stagers, we're inviting local store owners, Smitty's, and that kind of thing, right? To interact with our furniture makers, right, and see where they can help each other, right? We want to do the same thing for food, the same thing for instrument makers, right, and to make them short, focused kind of business development things. The Royal Bank is very happy to come in and offer business advice, right, and offer courses, because a lot of these people are so small in businesses. Most of them are 1 or 2 or 3 people kind of businesses that they haven't gotten to that stage yet of looking at how financing can help them and how getting together with other people can help them. I mean, maybe we could do a booklet of instrument makers of West Grey, right, of which there are, I've come across almost 15 now, some of them world known. Right, kind of thing, right? And Grey County too. I mean, I view that as something that we could do for all of Grey County, not just West Grey, right? So some of this is West Grey specific, but some of it is larger and encompasses all of Grey, right?
Mm-hmm. Very good.
One last question.
Please.
Do you have a rough timeline, start date? It must be any...
A bit of it depends on how the funding comes together, obviously, right? The Tilton Hilton, 105 Garifraxa comes up for lease. Bev's moving out at the end of February, right? We won't be ready to, at that point, to leap into it. And I've talked to the landlords, and they're fine with a bit of a delay. Ideally, I would like to see being open, like the big opening, to be in July. I think at this point would be a time frame we could work towards. The gallery this week is doing their final interviews for our new curator, right? And that person will obviously have a big part to play in this, right? We've been a little hamstrung because people like Stephen have been doing like triple duty for long. Right, so once we get that extra hands on, we can start to move a bit quicker. I know the board's been putting in like a huge number of hours a week on this, right, for the past 4 or 5 months.
Thank you.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I'm just going to suggest that I think if we send this back to economic development, I think is where it needs to be. I wouldn't want to mandate them to. I think we're saying that we're in favor, the council seems to be in favor of, but I would really like them to take a look at this and make the decision. But I think we would have to have a presentation, and I look to our economic development person, whether we'd have room to fit them into the next meeting's agenda. But I would really like to see this group come forward to that group so that they have all the facts that they can maybe make a recommendation back to council. But so I think it's going to take a presentation at that level.
Yeah, I absolutely agree in terms of the evolution of the discussion that it needs its time with Economic Development Committee. And I did note here, I'm just wondering in terms of timing and like when the Economic Development Committee would be meeting. So I'm looking to Kathy Sweeney, who is our Economic Development Officer, if that is correct, or Coordinator. If you could provide some context around this.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. We have
actually settled on a date. It was just settled. So it is Wednesday, February the 13th from 9 to 11:30, I believe is the correct date. And I have not proposed an agenda at this time because it's still very fresh. The one question that I would like to ask of Mr. Sugarman is regarding the staff involvement with with this endeavor. What do you envision, like, our portion being, not just the monetary, but do you envision us coming in and working this space with you?
For special events and that would be deeply appreciated, right? If we're doing like a trade show kind of thing, it would be great to have someone from economic development there, right, as part of that. Otherwise, it would just be training the co-op or the artists who are actually giving out the information. Grey County has already offered to include them in their tourism tour that they do for people, where they take you around to various campgrounds and other, waterfalls and all the things to sort of make people familiar with what Grey can offer. So I would see that kind of help on that level, right? But as for a day-to-day kind of need to be there, no.
Okay, so you wouldn't be looking for someone, like a summer student to come in to...
Summer students would be great. If we could work with you on getting a summer student in, that would be fabulous and deeply appreciated. It wouldn't be a requirement for sure.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
I'm happy to, more the better.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Further questions from council? Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Just more comment. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's nice to see the work that we did last summer has come this distance and the amount of work that you put behind it. I was at one of your think tank sessions and I took a lot out of it during the campaign, and I still think a lot of it's applicable for what we need to do moving forward. So kudos to the Durham Art Gallery for everything you've done there.
Pass those along.
So in conclusion on that, I do support your vision and
your light, please. And push forward.
Push forward. There. Apologize.
Like towards you, please. Sorry, that's a different thing. It's just a different
We
way
all
of
good?
describing. Yep.
Hopefully you heard my comments there, but I agree with Councillor Herget. I think we need to involve all of West Grey, and we need to get down into the Newstead and really promote this now as we move through it, so that we're incorporating all of West Grey and not so much just Durham in particular. So other than that, I just wanted to say thank you for your follow-up on all those sessions that I think we all participated in, and just it's a great job and wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Okay, further questions? That was a really great discussion, by the way. So I had an indication of a motion. Councillor Herget, do you want to read it again, please?
So I move...
Oh, here.
Oh, you got it. Mark's
Yes,
so efficient.
he,
Okay,
our
great.
clerk has actually written
Good.
it. Can we pass that?
Okay, so I'll just read what I have, and then we'll look forward to getting this right. I move that we refer this to Economic Development Committee with a mandate to bring back deliverables to West Grey Committee of the Whole to provide support on this initiative. So at the most basic level, we support it. What are we going to do would be the feedback from economic development that I'd be looking for.
Yeah, like a supporting principle. I'm going to go to Councillor Hutchinson as a seconder, if perhaps, because you've been speaking a lot about it going to economic development.
I would like to hear what Mr. Turner feels, because my concern is that when we're mandating something that our committee, Economic Development Committee is doing, when they haven't even had a chance to look at it, and I think we're overstepping their boundaries, their control. I think they should look at it first and then bring it back to us. And I mean, if we decide that we want to go forward and they say no, then that's our prerogative. But I think we need to let them have their say first before we mandate anything. So we're deferring it to them for discussion and future recommendations.
Clerk Turner, do you have a comment?
I think the reference to mandate was to bring some deliverables back to Committee of the Whole. So in essence, it's recommendations. They'll deliberate, they'll make some recommendations as they are an advisory committee, which they will make recommendations to Committee of the Whole and ultimately to Council for possible ratification. So I think the it's in order that that motion sounds appropriate.
So just before I go to our CAO, would you be seconding the motion, and were you looking at any change of the wording based on
No,
what our clerk
if
has said?
our clerk feels that it's appropriate, that's fine. I just don't want to feel heavy-handed on our Economic Development Committee before they've had a chance to discuss it, right?
Yeah, and I like that clarity for sure. CAO Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, when Economic Development's recommendations would come back, when you're indicating a future committee of the whole, because this could have budget implications, might I suggest that we try to come back on the February 22nd budget date?
Good.
Because that would align nicely with any decisions that council may like to make at that point.
Great, and that is a really good time frame for everything in this dialogue, and I'm sure the Durham Art Gallery would be appreciative of our due diligence on this as well. Councillor Herger.
Just to Councillor Hutchison's point there, I'm actually trying to engage our Economic Development Committee. Sometimes in the past, it has been, here's what we want you to do, and, it's just not been, it has not been like we're looking for that to come back. They haven't had their own agenda that we really need them to focus on something. And so you're right. I want to give them the time to hear this great presentation as well and to sift through it. But I really am looking forward to their recommendations coming back.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Just further that, we do have a new committee, so a new focus, and we have an economic development person who's already been here, heard the presentation. So I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hearing it that it is a directive from this council. We wouldn't go that approach on our committees at all. I don't think that's an appropriate way, because it's assuming that a certain direction will be followed, and without that's too much structure. I think when we're a council committee, structure overall, so we need that flexibility for looking at different variables for sure. So we do have a motion before us, moved and seconded. Are there any other questions on it? Sorry, you're looking for Clerk Turner? Okay. We'll utilize that. Thank you. This is why the clerk is on the right-hand side of me. I appreciate that. All right. Do we need any clarification from staff on the motion based on that? All right. All right. When I get attention from all members of council on that. So, are we clear on the motion? I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Excuse me. If any, it does carry. Thank you very much. All right, thank you for your delegation. We'll talk further, for sure. Yes, and now if Councillor Jeffrey Shea could come back in the room, I wonder if a staff member could invite him back. Welcome, Councillor Shea. Just a moment. All right, so that does conclude our delegations. So we're on item 11 now, and which is... This is...
Rising good, that's for bylaws done.
Okay.
Go to business arising.
Yes. So we're on item 11, which is business arising from the previous meeting, of which there is none. And we've dealt with the staff report on item 12. We are now on proposed bylaws, first and second reading. So this, I'll just put this down for a mover and a seconder. All right. So we are dealing now with proposed bylaw 15-2019, moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 15-2019, being a bylaw to appoint citizens to various committees of the municipality of West Grey, and that does repeal bylaw number 132-2018, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended, and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions on this bylaw? No? Calling the question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed if any? Carried. All right, now we're dealing with proposed bylaw 16-2019, Moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 16-2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 5th, 2019 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. All right. Thank you, Clerk Turner. All right, so we've completed the bylaws section. Item 14, new business. So we have, members of council, quite a bit on the docket so far for our staff to address on new business. Is there anything, Councillor Herger?
Address one of the new committees that we were discussing previous was a sustainability committee. I did a bit of research. There's Grey Bruce Sustainability Network, and so I'm not sure if that is still ongoing. All the research I found was like 2015, 2016. I hadn't seen anything recent, so I didn't know if that fit our committee that we were thinking of, or if that work's still ongoing or not.
Okay, so what we could do is that's a very, very good point, and thank you for your research. We appreciate that. We'll take a look at that. The proposed mandate terms of reference have not been crafted as yet, but we'll take that into consideration and fuse that in to see where it fits in. Does it achieve what we're trying to do anyway? Is there a different way to network? And I'm naturally looking over here to Councillor Hamilton on it. So let's look further on that. So I appreciate that. Good. So noted then. All right. Good. On item 14 then, addendums, item 15, of which we have none. So item 16, a notice of motion, direct motions, NA on that one. I'm looking. Good. Item 17, closed session, incomplete items. We are complete on that. Item 18, matters arising from closed session, NA, nothing on that. So we are now at item 19, moving swiftly. Item 19 is question period. And this is the time where we invite members of the audience if they have any questions based on the agenda today. So are there any questions? Bob Miller, thank you. Not yet. That gray button? Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't going to make any comments today, but since there's lots of time, I will. Something I heard here numerous times from these ladies from Owen Sound and otherwise, affordable housing. Affordable housing. Also, I noticed in minutes from the budget meeting that they're going to hire a consultant to revise the development charge. This development charge thing is bad. West Grade charges about $3,500. Grey County charges $7,000 and up. By the time you put a few other things on, you come to under $15,000, including building permit and so on and so on. That will not create affordable housing. I'm wondering, this is the question, why not forget about the development charge and encourage Grey County to forget about the development charge? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, for that. We appreciate that. We'll have further discussion on affordable housing. I'm thinking that's going to be at the next council meeting because we had a committee of the whole discussion dealing with an item for affordable housing. So that gets over to our next council meeting. Your comments are so noted. We appreciate that. In terms of a development charge, I think we're mandated every 5 years. I don't know if mandate is the appropriate word, legislated, that we have to do a review every 5 years of that. I know the clerk is going to clarify and provide more information on that within terms of how we review that. So can I go to the clerk and then over to you, Bob? Would that be okay? Thank you.
So councils do not have to pass development charges, but if they do, and they want to continue to do so, a development charge bylaw once passed is good for a 5-year term, then it has to be renewed again if council wishes to continue as of the day that current bylaw expires. So it is not mandatory, it's optional. Obviously, it's a philosophical point. It's development charges are intended to pay for development. So basically a user pay. So it takes money that otherwise would have been payable by all of ratepayers and deflects that, takes that away from the general levy and appropriates that to the actual user or the developer of the homes, or even commercial, which we don't have a commercial development charge. So it's a philosophical thing. We have user fees, obviously, for recreation facilities, et cetera. So that's something that, council has to kind of tussle with. And obviously, development charges, when they apply to all different kinds of housing, whether it's single detached apartment. So a lot of those homes are not deemed affordable housing. So you'll have a $400,000 house that's being paying a development charge, but that's not affordable housing. And those individuals can likely afford to pay, where, again, council, I think, is going to look at that issue, whether or not an apartment unit of some size may not be appropriate for development charge. So that's, again, it's a philosophical point of discussion with council.
Sure, and that's when council has opted into having a development charges bylaw, that's that whole cycle, the five-year term has to be looked at. And whether you adopt the philosophy that development pays for development, so it's not only the housing, but it's for library usage, roads, in part police service. So there's a whole category of how those development charges would be applied. And that's when a council does opt into using development charges. Okay, having said that, for information, Mr. Miller.
Okay, I see in council news from around the country that some councils get a report of how many dollars is in the development charge fund. I'm wondering, can we get that here somehow?
So, okay, interesting question. Director Mighton.
Yeah, we report that annually once we've closed off the year end and everything. It's a requirement, yeah.
All right, so that is a requirement, Mr.
Okay,
Miller.
one municipality in Wellington, they have 745,000.
Okay, thank you. All right, so when would we be, just because to follow up on what Mr. Miller is saying, when would we be expecting that report?
So typically, we don't provide that until we've got the audit completed.
Okay.
Then, those numbers are not changing.
All right, very good. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, any further questions? Thank you. Well, thank you for being here, by the way. Item 20, Municipal Act notices, none. And now I'm looking for an adjournment, mover and seconder for item 21. Okay, I say it is Councillor Townsend, Councillor Hergert, that for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you all for being here.